Standing here with Tim Gibbs ahead of a concert which is happening this evening. We've got a rehearsal with Esa-Pekka Salonen coming up very soon. Tim, could you introduce yourself and your role with the orchestra?
Yes, I'm Tim Gibbs. I am one of the two principal bassists of the Philharmonia Orchestra, and I lead the bass section, a very brilliant, capable bass section here. I guess that's about it, really.
Could you tell me a bit about that instrument and your relationship with it?
I've had this bass 3 or 4 years now, and actually the previous owner of this bass used to be the other principal bass of the Philharmonia Orchestra, so the instrument's actually been associated with the orchestra for quite a long time now, well over 30 years. And it's a great bass. It's a really good size. It's very, very deep, but it's quite short in the body, so it makes it really accessible to play in all different areas.
You can really see the marks of usage
good use,
on
yeah.
the side.
There's a good bit actually around here, down here. The owner before Neil, Jeff, was back in the day when everybody used to smoke in studios and still, way before the smoking ban, and he used to apparently just leave his lit cigarette down here, and there's a little bit of a nicotine stain down there.
Nice. It was a very different time.
It was a very different
sessions.
time,
Yeah. We've kind of ambushed you at a time ahead of a concert where you're kind of fresh for the day. Walk me through where you're at in the day right now and how you're feeling, honestly.
It's a Sunday morning. I've just had a cup of coffee, which is very nice. So, I mean, we're 10 o'clock rehearsals on Sunday morning on days of concerts, and Esa-Pekka rehearses. We tend to have morning rehearsals when we have evening concerts. Turn up about 9 o'clock in the morning, do a little bit of a warm-up, need to sort the instrument out a bit before we go on stage, and then we'll have a 3-hour rehearsal until 1 o'clock, bit of a break in between.
Is this a typical day in the life of Tim Gibbs, or is it quite rare that you'd be here on a Sunday and preparing like this?
No, I think it's a pretty typical work day. The orchestra tend to do concerts at the festival hall on Thursdays and Sundays, with the occasional exception. So a weekend trip into town to play concerts, nothing out of the ordinary. Yeah.
Looking onto the stage at some points, there are some players that are playing very hard and some players that might have a rest, and there are moments, when the basses won't necessarily be playing or when they're playing a lot. I'm wondering what you're thinking of. Are you always in that zone and you're thinking about what's coming up, or do you zone out sometimes?
No, we're always concentrating. Other people in the orchestra might not know. I think it's I think that concentration sort of needs to be there on a level all the time. Certainly for us. I think it's also repertoire dependent. I think if we were playing a big long Mahler symphony and we were brass players, then and we had a slow movement off, for example, then I think it's important to take some sort of break in your concentration, and certainly physically you need it. But for us, it's a slightly different game. We have to, as bass players, we have a bit more of an integral part to do with the orchestra, and I think we always have to be pretty much on it at all times.
What's going on right now?
Well, you can hear Antoine doing his new warm-up routine. He's the new timpanist in the orchestra, and he likes to do the warming up thing quite a lot, so we think, I don't know. Maybe he heard me, I think he stopped. Yeah. I think generally speaking now, everyone's arriving, getting into the concert clothes, and probably warming up a little bit, or whistling like Carsten does quite a lot.
Lots of different personalities and lots of different things happening right now. It's kind of a unique buzz and something that is really nice about the orchestra.
I think that's one thing that I've certainly noticed, having relatively recently joined the orchestra, is that the atmosphere backstage at a Philharmonia rehearsal and concert rather is very different to other orchestras that I've played in. And oddly as well, the atmosphere at the front of the house is different as well, with the audience members buying their cups of tea, coffee and everything. It's a very different atmosphere amongst them at the front of the house as well, which you wouldn't necessarily have thought would be the case. But, yeah.
Finally, what makes it all worthwhile? What makes it worth it, your job, and the commitment that you've given, which you clearly have, to get to this stage?
There's no one thing. I mean, I definitely love playing music, and I think I have always done on various different levels. In 6 months' time, I will have played the bass for 30 years. I realised that the other day because it's my birthday tomorrow, and I thought, oh goodness, 30 years. But it really doesn't seem like it, and it's been much more about a journey, and certainly a journey that's not really has one specific target. It's always about the next performance and always doing your best for your colleagues and for the audiences. That, I think, is why we play music. It's nothing if we don't perform it, because it's just dots on page, and I think that's what makes performance art very different. In the same way that you can watch a football match on TV, but going to a stadium and actually watching a game is a completely different experience. Coming to a concert is exactly that. It's a completely different experience to sitting at home and listening to a recording, or even indeed watching a performance on the internet, as you can do these days. So. Because you asked me earlier about my role in the orchestra, and I'm the principal bass here. And a lot of people think that sort of as a section leader or as a principal player, you have to do exactly that. You have to sort of lead. And it's almost the opposite. What we try and do here, certainly in the bass section in the Philharmonia, is that if one person leads, then I guess by the very nature, the other people in the section follow. And I guess if you follow, then you're behind someone in terms of time, I suppose, in which case then the ensemble will always suffer. So I guess what we try and do here is we try and encourage each other to all essentially lead, all really feel the music together and all play in exactly that way, and I think it has a really positive effect on the rest of the orchestra when the bass section plays absolutely together in terms of ensemble. And so it also makes my job, I suppose, a little bit easier. I suppose if things aren't exactly together and people are listening to different things, and of course other ensemble problems might be present in the orchestra when rehearsing, then we just have to have a quick conversation and say, okay guys, well let's just listen to that bit there and we'll all lock into that, and it tends to solve the problems quite easy. But generally speaking, my job at the front of the section is just to marshal that, and it really encourages everybody in the section to take responsibility and lead themselves, I suppose. I think we're also quite lucky in bass sections that it's an unusual size of a section in terms of the symphony orchestra. Usually we play with 8 players, and it's sort of big enough to have quite a strong effect rhythmically on the rest of the orchestra when it's playing together, but also it's small enough that everybody can take their individual responsibility to be a leader. So I think it's really good that we do that, and it has a really positive effect.